the right, the death process, right? Like there's so many unanswered questions that we all have about that, and um, alongside with the grieving that we go through for losing a loved one. So, um, thank you again. Welcome to the Bear Experiment podcast. I'm your host, Monica Clavijo, and today we are joined by hospice nurse Penny. She does amazing work assisting individuals with their transition to the other side. She's been doing this for 17 years now.
Almost 20.
Almost 20 years. So she's got some interesting stories to share about that. But part of her advocacy is to share her knowledge on what she's experienced with these patients as they transition, um, in order to be more comfortable with accepting what's the inevitable, right? We're all going to get there. It's, there's no way out of this one. Um, so thank you again. So why don't you share a little bit of your story? Like how did you get started and had this amazing calling? Because this is not something that just anybody can do.
So I actually did not become a nurse until I was in my 40s. I was getting a divorce from my second husband, and I went to nursing school. So I had no career to fall back on. I had been a bartender in previous life, and during the 10 years we were married, I was a stay-at-home homeschooling mom. So I knew I needed to have some kind of a career to be able to support myself and my daughters. So I went to nursing school, and I went into hospice because I felt the need to do service work. Earlier in my life, I had been kind of a failure to launch. Got in trouble with the law, was arrested a few times, had a drug issue. And so I felt like I wanted to do service work. And I had had experience with hospice because a year before I went to nursing school, my husband at the time, his stepmother had cancer and went on hospice. I didn't even know what it was up until that point. I'd never even heard of it. But when I met the hospice nurses, I really felt like, oh, they're doing sacred work. Like this is service
Oh
work.
yeah.
So it was something that just really spoke to me. I really wanted to do that. And I did not think that LPN, so I started off as a licensed practical nurse. I did not think that LPNs could work in hospice. So it was, in the plan for me to eventually become an RN and become a hospice nurse. So at first I went and worked in a clinic for a year. And then I decided to go to a hospital so I could get some more direct patient care under my belt and preparing for going back to school and becoming an RN. Unfortunately, hospitals often will lay LPNs off, like they do this cyclical layoff every 10 years or so. And they laid me off. Well, during that time, I had divorced my husband and started dating somebody new, and there was a hospice care center in his neighborhood. And I passed by it all the time, going to his house, and I was like, oh, I'm going to work there someday. I'm going to be an RN and I'm going to work there someday. Well, when I got laid off, I thought, you know what? I should just go and see if they hire LPNs. I really didn't know for sure that they didn't. I just assumed. And I went there, and sure enough, they had one LPN position that was coming available. They were brand new. They were just opening. So they had one LPN position opening up, and they hired me. And from then on, it was, all the way. It was pretty much hospice nurse the whole time. Once I got my RN, I worked in an ER for about 3 months, and I hated that. And then I went back to hospice, and that's really all I've ever done.